Welcome to the Be Happy Now show. Flex your soul connection muscle and be your inner guide to fulfillment and purpose. I'm Claudia-Sam. If you know that you're here for a bigger reason, this is the place to be. Together, we ditch the self-care guilt and quit the go with less fear and more trust. Tune in to living life in alignment with your full potential. The Be Happy Now show starts now. Hello. Oh, these conversations are so exciting. If you are human too and have maybe many thoughts, you might find that some of them aren't really helpful. Welcome to episode 160 of the Be Happy Now show. If you have not yet listened to episode 158, which is the beginning of this conversation, all about why you are always deserving of abundance and ease, it's the part one of this conversation about the lies of the ego. Okay, so if you haven't yet tuned into that episode, I recommend that you go there first, episode 158, and then come right back to episode 160 so that we can continue this conversation. This specific episode is going to be talking into navigating uncertainty, navigating change, what to do with the ego in conversation inside your head with the thoughts that aren't helpful when you might find yourself judged, or that in the midst of change, when you're going with your heart, when you're like, I want to do this for me. I know that I'm deserving of abundance and ease, and therefore I'm making these decisions or I want to make these decisions, but I might be afraid that I will be judged, or I wonder if I will do it right, or will be a good parent or a good worker, or if I'm actually going in the right direction. So in this episode, I'm going to teach you how to navigate that. Specifically, I'll share a step-by-step of how to navigate those ego thoughts when they're there and they're messing with you. They're messing with who you really are, and they have you all mixed up about what you deserve and what is right and which direction you should go. So I'll share with you a 3-step, very quick, easy system that can actually change your life. Okay, so I'm excited for you. Let's get right to it. First, by recapping the first part of this conversation, recapping quickly episode 158, in which we identified what's the voice of the ego, what's the voice of the intuition. I don't know if you're watching the video right now, but there's butterflies that keep flying across the window, and I find that a beautiful symbol. I'll let you make up your own meaning. In that episode, we also explored how to distinguish both of these voices. We unveiled what the ego lies are all about and what you can do to work with the ego and not against it. And so, again, we're continuing this conversation. And the first place I'd like to start with is a question that I got from a client, which maybe you have that too. She asked, what's blocking me from being able to live in the energy of my deservingness and feel that I'm worthy every day, even through changes? Because if worthy is who I am, then how can I work on reminding myself that I'm worthy all the time instead of hitting a wall and, having not remembering, not knowing that I'm worthy? And how I responded to that question as I asked her, what part of you is asking this question? In other words, who in you, what part of your personality or part of the layers of yourself is asking you what's blocking you from remembering your worthiness? And she responded this: the ego, I guess. It holds me back from seeing and experiencing the truth of who I really am. And then I went, aha, yes. The goal is not to wait until you've forgotten who you are and how deserving of joy and ease and abundance and peace that you are. That's not what it's about. One of the hacks here is that one of the lies of the ego is that it has you thinking that you have to work harder to remember your worthiness than you do to forget it. But if you really think about it, it's harder work to convince yourself that you're unworthy than it is to convince or remember that you are worthy. And so even there, that's one of the roots of the ego lies, when it has you think that you have to work harder to remember your deservingness. Isn't that twisted? And in episode 158, I do share a technique. It would be really helpful if you have that similar question. So make sure to go and listen to it. Let's go into helping you to release the self-doubt so that you can feel confident in your choice of wanting to make a change, or in your choice of wanting joy and ease and peace through uncertainty, because not all changes are in our control. Actually, part of a change that might be in our control is a decision to make the change. But how the change will go, we don't have that guarantee. What we do have a guarantee is how we handle ourselves, how much we love ourselves, how much we accept our choices, how anchored in our confidence and in our deservingness we stay. When we're about to make a change, it's important to recognize that it might be scary to the ego because things are shaking up. The ego is at stake of losing its position, whether it's internal change in your shifts in your beliefs, in your operational way of being, but also in a physical change, like even moving a house. It's shaking up all the patterns and the habits that all parts of you have been used to. So there might be a voice. It's like there might be a voice that says, you're not ready, you're not enough, don't go right now, you're not prepared enough, you might fail, this might not work in your favor, are you sure? That voice is not your worthiness. This is your ego, and it's the part of you that's scared. If you remember, well, probably not, because thousands of years ago, when humans didn't have the types of shelter that we have, the types of houses, and the individualistic lifestyle that we have now, they would live in community and in a group, so that if they were pushed out of the group, they had to fight for their own survival. So it's a different, what I mean is that we live at a different pace now, and the level of survival is different externally, but internally it triggers the same fear. Therefore, the thoughts of, are you sure you might fail? Those are the same thoughts than thousands of years ago when our ancestors had to fight for survival if they were kicked out of the tribe, if you understand what I mean. So just to remembering that fear is not the goal of all of this work, is not to eliminate fear. I mean, it'd be great. I just I think we need to be a Buddha on the top of the mountain to eliminate completely fear. And so, what if we worked with it like we explored in episode 158? And so, remembering that confidence, when you have confidence, it's not about eliminating the fear. It's not about forgetting that the fear is there. It's not about ignoring, excuse my French, ignoring the fearful thoughts. It's not about ignoring them. And, imagine if you're going bungee jumping and then someone next to you imitating fear is saying, do it, do it, do it now. Like in Friends, when Chandler or Joey, I forget which one, but they yell at each other that to urinate on Monica's leg when she had a jellyfish sting. Okay, I have watched that way too many times. All to say that you can still make decisions, take action, take a step, move forward when you're not feeling 100% confident. And your confidence is there somewhere. A lot of the people I work with feel like they're not at their utmost level of confidence than they've had years ago. And some circumstances had them feel like they're a bit less confident in a part of their lives, but their confidence is radiating inside. So if you wait until you have 100% confidence to actually take a certain leap in something, it's like starting your business and wanting to wait until you have X amount of trial runs, or that you have a perfect, uh, I don't know what. But if you relate to waiting so long before taking an action, like a friend of mine wanted to ask someone out and was debating in their mind whether or not they should actually go ahead with it. Should they wait another week? And then today they called me and they said, I did it. I was courageous, and I asked them out, and they were turned down, but it it doesn't matter. They attempted, and they stepped into the courage, and therefore they broke through the fear. Or would we say they broke through the fear, or they took action even though the fear was there. Yeah, so it's not really breaking through the fear, I don't personally think, but it's working with it and saying, you know what, you don't have the best of me. Okay. All right. When we are faced with these fears, and we may use the courage, raise our confidence a little bit, or acknowledge that our confidence may not be 100% to still take action. There might you might be familiar with the term resistance, and how you might find that there is a part of you that's resistant to taking action. Like for my friend, for example, they were like, well, what if I get turned down? Right. So the resistance of taking action is a little bit like saying, I'm going to team up with the fear instead of teaming up with the confidence in order to take action. I'm going to team up with the ego's lie that I need to earn my worthiness. That's the lie. I'm going to team up with that. Therefore, I'm going to team up with the fear that says, if you do this, you might fail, you might get judged, you might get pushed aside, you might get pushed out of the tribe. Versus taking the courage, siding with the confidence, and actually taking an action means that you're acknowledging that the resistance is there. And just like you may have a menstrual cramp or a leg cramp and you're breathing through it, you, the resistance is not being ignored. You're not pushing through it. You're breathing with it. That makes sense. So resistance shows up in ways often when we're about to make a big change, or when we feel stuck because the ego thinks it's going to die, it's going to get pushed out of the tribe. So it shows up resistantly in these thoughts. Like if you change your job, your family might be affected, and you'll be a bad parent. And that's the resistance speaking. But the confidence, linked with God, with the universe, the intuition says, trust that everything is going to align for your highest good. And your family will actually support you as you grow. And your growth is in honor and in full service of them as well. Because resistance, therefore fear, therefore the ego lies, actually builds up this belief that, like, you'll be a bad parent. It takes evidence from what? From someone judging someone else, and then, or maybe this is like old news of ancestry. In a client session recently, we explored how the belief that the belief was, I am unable to have joy in my life unless I work for it. That was the belief. Therefore, that's also an ego lie. If I'm unable to access joy easily, I really have to work hard for it. I asked my client, what's the percentage of this belief in you that actually doesn't belong to you? And you know what the percentage was? 85 to 95% that didn't belong to her. And please know this, one of the things that I premised before asking the question was, take a deep breath And this isn't a thing about overthinking. This is how it feels, what is intuitively coming up for you. And this is like knowledge that you have deep down somewhere in you that can't really be explained. So I don't have data to back that up, but I'm sure that it's fine, right? If you're here, you get it. Okay. Resistance can also show up not just mentally, but it can show up physically. For example, the body can show tension in ways that has it say, I'm piecing out. I can't deal with this right now. Oh my gosh, I thought I wasn't recording. So the body can show up like a headache, or let's say you don't really want to go to a place where socially you could be kind of the, is that an expression we can use still? The black sheep? You know, you're the different person because you're choosing you, you're setting boundaries, you're a trailblazer, you're a driven dreamer, and you want to go for your dreams, you want to listen to your heart. And socially, it's not something that a lot of people do. And so maybe for fear, therefore, for going with the resistance, for going with the ego lie, your body might show a cold, a headache, cramps of some sort. And then that is the excuse that is therefore socially acceptable to not go to the thing. And instead, therefore, side with the resistance, with the ego lie, and stay home, not have to face your truth of listening to your heart, for example. So that is a way that resistance can show up physically as well. Okay, we're entering the 3 steps that I promised you at the beginning of the episode on how to handle the ego thoughts. So let's shift this around. Let these 3 steps be how to handle not only the ego lies, the thoughts themselves, but the way that resistance might show up in your body. Okay. And this is like resistance actually living in your truth, and to remembering that you don't need to wait or earn for abundance and peace and ease to be in your life. And you also don't need to stop yourself from acting because there's uncertainty or because there's other people's judgment, because ultimately you're here for your purpose as well. And you're not going to let any other person tell you you shouldn't do this because it makes them uncomfortable. Okay. I am so here to hold you up to the standards of your higher self. And that is one of the things that's in all of my client agreements. If your ego lies start to run the show, that is why you're here. And I'm here to remind you that those are lies, to help you see what is for your highest good. Okay, so the 3 steps that will help you to either catch the resistance mentally, or catch the resistance physically, resistance to your truth, to not listening to the lies, to living more authentically. Step 1, when you find yourself worrying, overthinking, or stressing out, like physically there's something happening, my invitation for you is that you do your best to notice it. I can guarantee, because I'm human too, that this, something physical or mental, happens every day that is not in alignment with the truth of who we are, especially as adults, because we have years of practice of believing the ego lies. So they're still there, even if you do the work of growing and of learning and connecting with who you really are. When you find yourself worrying or your body reacts with attention, with a checking out, identify what you're saying out loud or what your body is feeling. Identify internally or write it out what might be made up, what might be a peace out, I'm checking out, I actually don't really want to go to that thing. And then your body is responding in that way. Or mentally, identify what's actually a made up story. Identify what's false. Like, oh, if I do this, I'm going to be a bad parent, for example. That you can identify that as false, whereas you can identify the truth in the example of the ego says, if you change your job, if you move to this other place, your family's going to be affected and you'll be a bad parent. You can recognize that you're having this thought. You can recognize that that is false. Therefore, what is true? What is true is that your family will support you as you grow, and that if you change your job, it will be in their best interest too. I mean, we could argue whether this is a fact or not, and it's is I will say that I think it's truer. If you believe it's truer, it's truer. Because if you change your job because you're going to have more joy and you're going to feel more in alignment, don't you think that your energy is going to radiate and they're going to feel it too? Therefore, it's going to be for their benefit. If their feathers are fluttered, uh, if they feel triggered, let's say it that way, if they feel triggered because of your instigating of change, remember that that's their experience. And ultimately, your radiating of joy is only for the highest good of all. So the step one here is that when you are noticing that you're worried or that your body is physically tense, remember to recognize, hey, what's false here and what's true? This kind of work can go way deeper, and we can deconstruct this and really go into it with immense shifts when we're in a one-on-one session. Now you're just getting a tip, a tool. And if you want to go even further, you can check out a book called Loving What Is by Byron Katie. And there are so many other resources out there, one of which is If We Work Together, if you do the tune-in program, for example. Okay, step two, ready? Once you've recognized what's true and what's false, what do you want to do with that train of thought? Because you're a choice and you can really decide. Now you've identified, oh, this thought or this physical reaction, it's actually made up. It's false. And this over here, that's the truth. So, like, let's say your body shows a headache and you had an event, so you have to bail. What's true? I don't want to go. Ah, can you be with that? So, what do you do with this train of thought? Can you be with that? Or will you judge yourself? Can you accept yourself for actually not wanting to go? For example, because you can also utilize your time, your energy, your precious energy to spiral into worry about what will people say if you don't go to the thing, or if you do take this job and it affects other people. Because I'm sorry, but did you ever notice how when you go to the movies and they say, like in the captions, violence or disturbance or drugs and rape and all these things. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we're being entertained by that. So imagine what better to fuel the ego lies than those movies that are showing us all the bad things that can happen. So it feels easier to believe that because somehow humans are not entertained with only good stuff happening. Okay. So just remember that once you've recognized what's true and what's false, then you get to decide, what do I want to do with this train of thought? How do I want to respond? Who do I want to be? What do I want my relationship to be with this now? Because again, you're a choice. Step three, it's to get back into the now moment, because in the now moment, that's where you can make the choice based on what you want to do with the train of thought. You get to see that, hey, if what's false is like a made up story, and I see what's true over here, my invitation for you is to choose to take the time that you need and just be aware of that. Let's say you're choosing to go with the judgment and the not self acceptance and the the false story, because sometimes we just need to blab it out. Sometimes that shifts the energy as well. And it can be disempowering. So the step here is to realign with what feels in true alignment and true empowerment for you. In other words, let's say that, let's take another story, another example. Mm, if the ego lie is, I'm going to be judged, or it can sound like, what if I'm judged? What if in this social environment I feel pushed aside and they're judging me as um, somehow unworthy, somehow not good enough, somehow you might feel like you have to do more to earn your position and your status. Well, that's all the story, okay? That's all the false and the false ego lies. And that might contribute again to the disempowering energy. Whereas the feeling of actually making your decision, whether it's changing jobs, changing careers, moving, making a shift in a relationship, saying what you think, saying what's on your heart, setting a boundary. If that, if there's lightness on the other side of that, which one will contribute to the highest good of all? Which one will contribute to your purpose the most? And are you willing to go with that? Do you love yourself enough to go with that? Mhm. And can you remember that when you choose, we're kind of repeating ourselves here, but sometimes we just need to anchor it way into our cells. Remember that when you choose, let's say this feeling of lightness on the other side, that that is actually a contributor positively to other people's lives around you, those you love. And can you let that be okay to make other people uncomfortable a little bit, and yet to follow your sense of alignment? So step by step, once again, no, recognize that you're worrying or that your body is tensing up, and recognize what might be true or false. Then remember that you get to decide here which way to go. And then are you willing to choose what's the highest in the highest power for you? This can also be linked to like trusting the process, because if you're not ready, a little bit, we said a little bit about, if you want a pity party and you want to just blab it out, that's fine. Let the ego have a tantrum. It's okay if trust comes a bit later. Just in awareness is where you keep your power. Okay. Last segment of our show today is about really dealing with the external experience of judgment, but the inner conflict of what to do about it. So we did actually talk about, you get to choose your lightness and over the judgment of others. And what I want to say about this, because again, I feel like we're repeating different things, but hopefully it's landing for you, because this is the way that it was channeled for me to share with you, is that lightness wins. That purpose, that on the other side there's lightness, there's joy, there's peace, there's abundance, that wins over everything. And eventually life puts in our way things to bring us closer to that, even if it feels like that's not what we want. So when we're in empowerment and we go and we listen with our intuition instead of siding with the resistance, well, we just find joy and lightness much faster. Hmm? So choosing that doesn't mean to be mean with other people and being like, ha ha, I'm choosing me, I'm putting you to the side. It's rather about recognizing that if you're here, it's because you're driven, you have dreams, you're a trailblazer, you want to reach these goals, and you might just be wondering what is the right step because of the overthinking and the addiction to thinking and having the ego lies have had the stage for so many years. So own that you're a trailblazer, own that you're a driven dreamer, own that you have goals and that your heart is speaking to you and that you want to listen to your intuition. Mhm. I know it takes courage to take bold moves. Yeah, you're courageous, and it's okay to wait. It's okay to trust the process. Trust your process. Okay, wrapping up, I have an invitation for you, like something you can work on for yourself, and that's to maybe take an uncomfortable action. An uncomfortable action can be to gently in the morning, instead of as soon as the alarm rings, get up and get moving because your to-do list is long. The uncomfortable action could be, let me press stop or snooze, to use the snooze not to check my messages, not to look on social media, but to breathe purposefully, to place my feet on the ground, to wake up mindfully, for example. Taking a bold action could be speaking up in a meeting. It could be saying no to something, an event you don't want to go to so that you don't create a tension or a physical attention, therefore a headache, for example, to opt out. Taking an uncomfortable action can be asking for a raise. Can be to say no to something that drains you. So, what's an uncomfortable action that could be small, that, like my friend who asked someone out, they did it. They took the courage and now it creates space because, yes, the possibility of being turned down or of accepting the date, it's both are there. What happens is that there's less ruminating, there's less resistance building up, and the lightness comes faster. They came up with ideas about putting themselves out there more instead of waiting a whole week to put themselves out there, you see? So that is my invitation for you, my little challenge for you. Okay. If you want to share with me what that ends up being, I'd love to know. P.S. I'm not responsible for your actions. Okay. All of this isn't meant to be a direct order. Please trust your intuition and do what feels the best, the most in alignment for you. Okay. Remember that you are worthy of everything good in your life. You are worthy of listening to your intuition. You are worthy of abundance and peace and joy without having to earn it. That you are exactly where you're meant to be. That the ego lies can be easily caught if you make the decision that you'll be listening to them, that you'll be in the role of noticing them. You're on this journey because you're meant to experience everything you desire. And one of my coaches says, everything you want is so much more, so much closer than you think. I like that. Okay. If you are wanting to take a step further, I did talk about the Tune In program. You're, of course, welcome to go to tuneinmethod.com. And if that feels not yet for you and you want to take a baby step, you can also go ahead and download my 3-step audio guide to put yourself first, and go to the website, claudiasamsoulcoaching.com, and click on the Start Here button. All the links are in the show notes for you to go ahead and do that. It's really for you to put yourself at the top of the to-do list. And the more you practice the putting yourself at the top of the to-do list, the more you can get to practicing what we talked about in episode 158 and in episode 160 more regularly. Okay. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so grateful for you, and I look forward to seeing you in the Put Yourself First audio guide. Okay. Thank you, dear friend. Have a good day.
You've been listening to the Be Happy Now show with me, Claudia-Sam. Flex your soul connection muscle and be your inner guide to fulfillment and purpose. You are worthy of being you and of connecting to what stops you from living the life you are meant to live. Access more soul connection coaching at claudiasamcoaching.com.